Hello, everyone, and welcome to Vestiges of History, where we tell of storied lives. I am Dylan, and I need your help telling this story today. This Purple Heart is worn, torn, dusty, and dented, and it has one hell of a story. On the reverse, it is engraved in the engraving style found on World War II KIA Purple Heart medals. This example is identified to Salvador Flores. It comes with a hard copy of his individual deceased personnel file. This is what we know. Salvador Flores was born in San Nicolas de los Agustinos in Guanajuato, Mexico in December of 1908. His mother was Petra Garcia, and Salvador immigrated to the United States sometime in the 19-teens or 20s looking for opportunity. He found work as a machinist for the railroad in and around Chicago, and he was living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin when war broke out. And he was drafted in March of 1942 and joined the 82nd Airborne, ending up in Easy Company 325th Glider Infantry Regiment. After training, the 82nd Airborne was deployed to the Mediterranean. The 325th arrived in Italy, boarding landing craft, and were deployed to Salerno for Operation Avalanche. On 15 September of 1943, at about 2300 hours, they landed at Paestum, some 18 miles south of Salerno. They received orders at daybreak on the 16th. The 2nd Battalion, presumably T5 by then, Flores among them, were to reboard the landing craft and be deployed farther north to the town of Maiori. They were then attached to Colonel William O. Darby's Ranger Task Force to relieve Ranger units currently holding positions on the 4,000-foot Mount San Angelo di Cava. The 325th was welcomed the following day by a German artillery barrage. The 325th held their ground despite numerous attempts to push the glidermen off the mountain. The regiment received its first war casualties on Mount San Angelo di Cava. The 325th was pulled off the line on 25 September, adding its first 10 days of frontline duty to its balance. Following combat in Italy, the 325th was sent to England to begin preparation for Operation Overlord. On D+1, the 325th landed in Normandy, around Saint-Mère-Église, in an operation codenamed Hackensack. Many of the 325th casualties were due to obstacles known as Rommel's asparagus, telephone poles that had been topped with mines placed in landing fields, and numerous other casualties were from troopers drowning in their gliders which crashed into flooded farm fields. The 325th helped hold back German counterattacks on the beaches of Normandy and was awarded a Presidential Unit Citation. Here, the 325th joined the battle at the La Fiere Causeway, which would later be known as the bloodiest small unit engagement of the war. During the Battle of La Fiere Ridge, crossing the Meurthe River, we find Sergeant Flores, an old man of 36, engaged with the enemy in pitched combat. And this is where we lose him. He presumably lost his life during the 325th's charge across the river towards Calcigny on 9 June 1944. He was buried on 21 June 1944 at a temporary cemetery. His personal effects included a wallet, an address book, prayer books and cards, a religious medal, collar insignia, a cigarette lighter, a nail file, a good conduct ribbon, miscellaneous photos, which I would love to see, about 350 francs and 10 shillings. We pick up on his trail again when we begin to see correspondence between his family in Mexico and the U.S. Army Quartermaster regarding the disposition of his effects and his life insurance. The situation back home in Mexico was desperate. His mother Petra was elderly and destitute, and very grieved at the loss of her only son. Through these letters, the Quartermaster Corps did everything they could to be as helpful as possible. This is a beautiful thing. In March of 1948, the American Graves Registration Service exhumed Sergeant Flores from his grave at Saint-Mère-Église Cemetery No. 1 at Carentan. to the new cemetery at Colver-sur-Mer. In the report, we note that he was buried in his OD uniform. There was advanced decomposition of the remains, but evidence of a crushed skull. They identified him by the army serial number on his wool undershirt, and one of his dog tags was with his remains, and sergeant chevrons were also found. He was reburied at Plot E, Row 2, Grave 8, where he still is today. This is where you come in handy. This is where I'm asking you for help. There are plenty of other researchers and internet sleuths out there who can attack this from various angles that I can't. I want to find a picture of the man. He was in the service for over 2 years and one of the most photographed units of the war. I want to put a face to the name, a face to the medal. What am I doing about this? Well, I'm traveling to France to visit his grave. I'm taking his Purple Heart with me. It'll be with me at his gravesite. It'll be with me at La Fiere Bridge. It'll be with me at Cocagne. I want to better understand where he was and see what magic can happen in that very historical place. When you see this, I will be aboard a plane headed to France to make good on some promises I made a very long time ago. Among them would be visiting Sergeant Flores and paying tribute to his sacrifice. One hombre to another. I am, of course, taking all of you with me, and you'll see plenty of footage of this adventure in pursuit of truth. Before I leave, I want to recognize my good friend and supporter of this channel, Bob Chat of Vintage Productions, for supplying me with an original copy of the 82nd Airborne Unit History for this research project and video. Also, my good buddy, fellow historian and mentor, Todd Anton, thanks for supporting this project. Finally, I would suggest, for anyone interested, No Better Place to Die by Robert Murphy, a veteran's account of the Battle of La Fiere. This book is immensely helpful in understanding the battle. I'll see you over there. As always, you never know who will tell your story. Live a storied life.